John, can a customer mix Intel and AMD CPUs within the same vSAN cluster?
This is a fun one because I get to use my favorite phrase of all time. Technically, yes, but notice the inflection in my voice, which says what you're asking is probably going to be a bad idea. So it is worth noting that, yeah, in theory, you can dump all kinds of things into the same cluster, but there's certain things that are not going to work. So for vMotion compatibility, the ability to vMotion between two hosts that are of different CPU generations, we have something called EVC, Enhanced vMotion Compatibility. And this lets you normalize, say, from a Broadwell to a Skylake within Intel, or from a Naples to a Rome within AMD. EVC does not normalize between different CPU vendors. And so, yes, in theory, you can put these same hosts into the same cluster. But in order to migrate a virtual machine from an Intel to an AMD or an AMD to an Intel, you must power off that virtual machine and then power it back on. So the only case where I think anyone would consider doing this is if they're rotating from one vendor to another and they're replacing. I've got 6 hosts. I've got 6 new hosts coming in. I want to do it one by one because of rack space concerns, or maybe I want to put those 6 on. What you would do is you could pool them for vSAN for storage reasons and then do that. Also note though, in that way you wouldn't have to stand up a whole new cluster and migrate both storage and compute at the same time. But there's probably a better way to solve that by standing up that new cluster, setting the EVC to that level, and then using HCI mesh. So you could do the storage vMotion first, then do power off, migrate where the off VM sits, and then power on. So that way you could do that migration quickly without being in a situation where you have to kind of do unnatural things with blending that cluster.
Yeah, that sounds like a great way to swing those, consumers of the resources from one over to another, or simply to borrow those resources while you are changing, some of the strategies on what you're purchasing in your environment. I think that's really good to know, and actually a really flexible option for many of our customers. It sounds like.
Well, and yeah, being able to do that storage vMotion first, and then since you're gonna have to, you do have to take a window to power those off. But maybe you've got a patch window once a month where you're going to be patching the operating systems anyways. So load the patches, power it off, power it on, reboot. Use that patch window for that, and that way you're not having to wait on the storage migration at the same time. So that's going to be a lot less eyes on glass, or manual intervention.
Yeah, the much smarter way to go. Sounds like. Yeah.